This is Chris Kidd with your Core Complete Self-Postural Testing. Because posture is a major factor in terms of getting into these contorted positions with our core training circuits and the way we hold ourselves during the day, these are just 3 simple tests that are going to help us to identify weak links that we can work on through our corrective exercise that we prescribe in our program. With that said, our first exercise is for the upper body. What I want you to do is simply kind of hold out your hand, kind of look at the position of your hand, see how long it may be. We can measure it from kind of the beginning of the wrist down to the fingers, and we're looking for anywhere from about 6 to 8 inches here. All right, from here, what I want you to do is simply place one hand on top here, one hand on the bottom, and try to get them as close together as you can. All right, my question for you is this within 2 hand lengths of one another? All right, you can kind of have a partner help you to measure this, or you can look at this in a mirror, but what we want to do is compare one side to the other. If we find that we're over 2 hand lengths apart, so here versus maybe a little bit closer together, then this is a problem. This indicates asymmetry and sort of a mobility imbalance on one side or the other. All right, what you want to do is score the top side. So in this case, I'm scoring my left side, whereas in this case, I'm scoring my right side. All right, and we want to compare the two. All right, if your left side is clears, but your right side does not, we want to perform corrective exercises for both sides with prioritizing the more inflexible side. With that said, our next test is what we call our leg lowering test. In order to perform this test, what you're going to do is simply lie here in a doorway. Okay, I've got the base of the doorway here. This part, sort of where the doorway begins, placed in the middle between my kneecap and my hip. All right, what I want to do is flex my toes back like this, raise my left leg up, and see if my heel clears the doorway. All right, if it does not, that indicates that this is an area that we need to focus on. All right, by the same token, I'm going to raise my right leg up, and I'm going to do the same thing. All right, I'm going to give myself up to 5 tests here, and I want to compare one side to the other. Okay, does one side clear? Does one side not clear? Okay, whichever, if either side is deficient, we want to work on both left and right, but we just want to give priority to the more inflexible side. So just like the shoulder mobility drill in the same fashion. For our last test, we have what is called a hip internal external rotation drill. All right, with this, what I'm going to do is simply lie on my back, pull one knee to my chest, all right, and pull this part of my leg, this foot, bring it in as far as I can towards me here. All right, ideally, my foot I should have around 40 to 45 degrees of what we call external rotation in this position. So I'm about normal. All right, oftentimes if we find that we're only here versus in here, all right, then we've got a problem. We know that we're kind of lacking in this area. All right, by the same token, I want to move into internal rotation. All right, so like this. All right, and with this, again, I can see that I've got about maybe 30 to 35 degrees on this side. And you don't have to necessarily measure this, but it should be about symmetrical from side to side. So if either is not the case, if you find that you have a lot of movement from one side to the other, okay, then this is an area that we need to prioritize. So I'm about normal in this hip, right? I can see that, I've got maybe a bit of limitation, but it's within the range, right? And we want to compare one side to the other. So do I have as much range of motion in this hip? As you can see, I'm a bit more restricted in this hip. So this might indicate that this hip does not clear and the other does. All right, with this is not necessarily we don't necessarily have a testing pass-fail standard, but if you have more range of motion in one hip, so if this hip clearly is more, moving better than the other hip, you find that you have more range of motion one than the other, then we need to work on each side. So perform our hip exercises as prescribed in your program, and that is your self-postural testing.